Pete. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate being here. And for everybody else, I'm sorry I didn't bring any brisket this morning. I tell you, actually, I owe you guys a thank you for meeting there. When Pete came and asked me about it, I guess a couple years back, it took about a half a second to say yes. And it wasn't because of kindness of heart. It was because of the example that was being set in our business. You think about it, once a week, we had the opportunity to start our business day off by bringing the Holy Spirit in to our workplace. And then two, quite frankly, all those young kids, to see you guys coming together as adults, people they look up to and worshiping the Lord, that helps me out so much from teaching them those important principles. So thank you for doing that. And I was sad, actually, when you did move. And we have plenty of space if anybody else wants to start another forge up over there. and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I always love sharing. It's not my testimony. It's a story God put in my life. And Pete asked me to bring it back to business in particular, and I'd be absolutely delighted to do it. I found a story that I've told a few times before, and it came from the 1859. A guy named the Great Blondin was a Frenchman, and he was the one who really made tightrope walking famous. He brought popularity to it. He brought it out of the circus. He made it really exciting. And he was over in France, and he was doing that. And then he said one day, the United States was really starting to boom and get acclaim. He says, I'm going to bring my act over to the United States, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the first person to tightrope walk over Niagara Falls. Okay? Well, this was a big deal back then because no one over here had really seen anybody tightrope walk, let alone even go over Niagara Falls. Well, the day that he did it, over 5,000 people came and they gathered to watch him. I think the Prince of Wales was there. I mean, it was a big, big ordeal. Well, he started off that day, and it was a windy day. He went about halfway out, and all of a sudden he stops, and the crowd, everybody oohs and ahs. They're worried about him. He does a backflip and continues doing it. Well, he continued to do his act over and over, but each time he had to make it better and better. So one time he did it blindfolded. One time he did it carrying or pushing or pulling a wheelbarrow, putting a washing machine literally on his back, walking across, holding people on his back and doing it. And one day he was going to do it. He had one of the biggest crowds he ever had, and he had a wheelbarrow in particular. And he's about to start and go out there, and he stops. And this was the biggest crowd he ever had. And he says to the crowd, he says, who here believes I can do this? And all the crowd, everybody raises their hand, and they're cheering, and he's getting everybody whooped up. And he looks at one person. He says, do you believe I can do this? And the guy's like, well, yes, I certainly believe. He's about to go. He looks at the same guy again, the second time. He says, do you really believe that I can do this? And the guy, and now the rest of the crowd has stopped, and they're looking at him. And he says, well, yes, I do. About to go a third time, he stops. Looks at the same man the third time, dead in the eye, and he says to him, do you really believe I am, who I say I am, and I can do this, I can accomplish this? And the man stops, he thinks about it, he says, yes, absolutely. And the Great Blondin looks at him and says, great, get in. Point being, that opportunity to show your faith, that opportunity to jump in, is going to present itself. And sometimes it's not at the most opportune moments, and sometimes it's certainly at the highest risk points. And it just comes down to believing and to faith and to saying that. And we talk about success in the business world. There's countless books and studies and things that you can look at, why people are successful in it. Well, I quite frankly believe it's very simple. It comes down to doing what you're passionate about, what truly lies in your heart, and doing it for the right reasons, doing it for what God ordained you and asked you to be doing. I mistakenly thought, I was in the corporate world for 20 years, and I mistakenly thought, well, the higher my title is, the more cars that I have, the more people that work for me, or the more money that I make is going to bring me happiness. And the more I did of each one of those, the further and further I got away from happiness. Happiness has nothing to do with all of that. Happiness has to do with doing what God created you to be doing and doing it for that right reason. So many times, what is it? We start off our life, following a passion, and how many of us end up making a paycheck? How many of us, we start off our life to make an impact and make a difference in the world? And before you know it, 10 years goes by, you got double mortgages and cars. You're not making a difference, you're making a living. Okay? And when you go down that path, and I'm not speaking you, I'm speaking me. I will speak firsthand because this was me. All of a sudden you start going down your path, and those days get longer and longer. They get empty. I always say there's three things you look for when you're at work. In your different years in your career and different seasons that you go through. One, you go to work every day, and the reason that you're leaving your family and going behind is, you're learning something. You're progressing toward a further goal. Okay? Number two, you're going to work and you're doing what you do because you enjoy what you do. You like it. You're passionate about it. Okay? Number three, you're going because you're getting paid. You're making a living. This is important to do in life. Now, there's different seasons in your life that you go through, and you're very blessed if you have all three of those. Okay, but as everybody in here probably knows, those seasons aren't all the time. Sometimes you have one, sometimes you have two. But I will tell you this, if the reason that you're leaving your family, the reason you're going off and doing what you're doing every single day, 8 to 10 hours, okay, it's not because you're learning, it's not because it's something that you truly believe in or passionate about. If it's only for the money, it makes it an extremely long, empty day. Okay? No matter what it is you think that it is. You see, because I believe when you are born, and it talks about it in Ephesians in particular, God gives us, we're preordained. He's given us specific gifts. And He gives us those specific gifts for a particular reason. He wants you to do something in this world. And everything is significant. Okay? And it doesn't matter if you just simply paint this house or you make an impression on one person's life. We can never underestimate what that one little thing is and how important that is in His grand scheme. Okay? Now, and I love it. People ask me all the time, well, how do you know what that passion is? How do you know what that calling is? What I'm supposed to be doing? Personally, I always say, go back to when you're a kid. I love it when you ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, especially the younger they are. I want to be a fireman. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a football player. I want to be a doctor. I want to be president of the United States. You know what's beautiful about that? They're speaking from their heart, and nobody's told them what they can't do yet. Nobody told them they're not fast enough or tall enough or good looking enough or smart enough. This is truly what God's planted in their heart. And it's amazing how you go through life and things happen. They take you off that course. If you asked me when I was a little boy, first thing I would have said, long before I went into healthcare, was, I want to be a cook. I want to own a restaurant one day. And matter of fact, my first paper I wrote in college was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I wrote this long dissertation about restaurants and how we're going to differentiate it based on customer care, and we're going to care about the community, and we're show love, and this and that. And I was just so proud about it. And I never forget, I got the paper back and had a big F on the top of it, and it had a note written in it that said, hey, great thoughts, great strategy, but you better learn how to spell restaurant first. So English wasn't my strength. Matter of fact, the first job I ever got, I learned a very important lesson. I cut grasses all growing up. So I've worked ever since I was like 10 or 11 years old and loved it. First job I ever had, I was so excited. I grew up in Jacksonville. There was a little pizza place up there called The Loop. And I went and I applied, went through the motions, and I put on the application, what do you want to do, what position you're applying for? I applied, I'm going to be a cook. I want to learn how to really, really cook because I loved doing that growing up. And I got the job. And I got hired, and I'll never forget, I went in there that day, I literally, right when I turned 16 years old, meet the supervisor or the manager at the time, and, fill out the paperwork. He says, great, okay, let me bring you back to your workstation. I'm like, yeah, here we go, we're going to go to the kitchen. Well, he walks me in the kitchen, okay, introduces me to everybody, but keeps walking me, all the way back, and I'm looking at the ovens and everything. He brings me to the back corner, here's the dishwashing machine. He says, congratulations, you're our new dishwasher. I said, I'm so sorry, there's a mistake. I put on my application, I wanted to be a cook. He says, no, this is where you got to start. You got to work your way up. For about 2 or 3 days, my head was down. Like, golly, I can't believe that. I'm washing dishes. I looked at my job, it was terrible, and I started looking at everything around it. And then I realized something. I realized the importance of something that I very much believe in. If you're not doing something you're passionate about, bring passion into what you're doing. Especially if you want to change your circumstances, bring passion into whatever it is that God has placed you in. Okay? Well, I had my head down for a few days, and all of a sudden I realized that this isn't me. I'm not this kind of person at all. So remember back when we were kids, we had those little tape recorders? Remember the little blue and yellow and red ones with the little handles on it? And, you have to push the two buttons, play and record at the same time when you listen into the radio station when the song came on, and you get some of the DJ talking, and you have to wait. And I'm telling my daughter, this, she's 19 now, but back when I started this, she said to me, Dad, well, why don't you just download the song? What's wrong with you? I was like, yeah, I'm an idiot, I guess. I don't know. And had to explain to him how we did that. So I brought my tape recorder in, and I had, back then, Stones and Van Halen and, Jimmy Buffett and stuff. Well, I just put it above my dishwasher, okay, my machine. And really, I did it for my own edification. I didn't do it for any other reason. But this is when the lesson learned. As I was doing my work, my spirit started to rise, okay? And what was amazing, what I learned, and this is an important lesson, especially when you're in a leadership position, when your spirit rises, it affects everybody around you. And even when you're not in a leadership position. Because you know what? As the day went on, and as the days that followed came on, people started coming around. And it started lifting their spirits. And then they actually started helping me and doing more and more. And I was all, about efficiency. I started timing things and how fast can I get through this and how efficient can I be. And I got so excited about it. The next week, I said, well, this is cool. So I brought tiki lights. And I put these tiki lights all around my dishwashing machine, and more people came up. Well, about 2 weeks later, the manager realized what was going on. He came over and he says, John, you're doing an awesome job. I'm going to give you a promotion. I said, oh, thank goodness, I get to cook. He grabs me by the shoulder, walks me through the kitchen again, walks me out to the front of the house. Congratulations, you're our busboy. True story. Ever since the day I was 16, all the way through college, I had to work my way through to pay for college. I worked mostly in restaurants. Never once did I actually cook in a kitchen. Truth is, I had to open my own dang restaurant, just so I could actually cook. So here I am going along college, okay, maybe some of you guys can relate to this, and I know in my heart this is what I like to do, okay? Well, things happen to all of us that take us off that course, that move us away from what we were intended to be doing, what God put in our heart as our passion. And I will say this, a sneak peek at the end, that passion never goes away. We just cover it up. Mine was a disruption in our family, and my father left us and, threw everything off course, and it changed my trajectory considerably, okay? Now, even though this was a tough time, it was sad and a lot of pain and quite frankly, a lot of unknown, because I'd come from college because all the money was gone and had to paint houses and figure out how we're going to get through this. There's a reason. It's a reason that it happens. When you're in those dark times, what I've learned now is look for what, don't ask God why this is happening to me. I ask God what he's trying to show me during that time. And it changes the perspective completely. I think it was the 18th century theologian Kierkegaard who said that we live our life moving forward, but we tend to understand our life looking backward. Okay? And we look back on even those tough circumstances, those things that we went through. When we were in the middle of it, it might seem terrible, but you look at where you're at now. You got through it. And quite frankly, you are who you are today because of those circumstances. The positive ones and the negative ones. And you don't think it's good for you. Look at with David, the story about David when he was anointed to be king. Okay? People didn't realize it, but it wasn't until 12 years later he was called to be king. Okay? And during those 12 years, those were the 12 years, the most tumultuous time in his life. He was on the run for his life. And quite frankly, if you're in his shoes, you're going to ask God, wait a minute, you told me I'm going to be king. You put this oil on my head. Now I'm running for my life. What's wrong with this story? Okay? What was God teaching him during that time? He's teaching him to depend on him. There's a great book called Strengthening Yourself in the Lord, and it's all about that story and that time. he was teaching David, before I allow you to be king, I love you too much to put that much responsibility on you until I teach you to depend on me to get you through those tough times. Because he knew the tough times that were coming. And he loved David so much. I'm going to make you run for your life today so that you realize when you get in this situation in the future, all you have to do is turn to me. Those things absolutely happen for a reason. Now, I'm on my path. I graduated from college. And like I said, if you asked me back then, I had certain goals. It was all age related and it was all income related. Okay? By the time I was 30, I wanted to be making this. I wanted to be at this level. 35, I wanted to be here. And, it went all the way up to I want to be the president of a pharmaceutical company. I just had it on my brain. I wanted to be in the healthcare industry. Well, flash forward, I think it was about 14, 15 years of that. I was very blessed. I was the president of we were $1.5 billion distribution company. Okay, and we had a great company. I worked for great people just up the road from here, and many of y'all know many of the people that were there who were great mentors in my life. Okay, and one day, I'll never forget it. I was driving down. Our office is up in Longwood, and I'm speaking on the phone to a former peer from J&J. I was the president of my division. He was an executive now at J&J. Okay? And I found ourselves complaining about our job. Okay? We're $1.5 billion. We got 3,500 employees. The company's doing fantastic. Hung up the phone with him, and I said, "What's wrong? What is wrong with this? Why would I complain about my day, about my job?" And he asked the same question to himself, because he and I grew up together. We came out of the same mold. And that was the realization. As I keep telling my team, the same thing I just said to you, if you can't not doing something you're passionate about, bring passion into what you're doing. The second part of that is, if you can't bring that much passion into it to be excited, go do something different. Go find something you can put passion into. Because if your heart is not there, you're not there. All of you. And if you, from my perspective, I think I'm stealing then from the company. If I'm not 100% there, I'm not giving it my full. And I'm taking something away, and I'm getting something from somebody that's not fair. And how can I sit there and talk to my team and tell them about being all here and being passionate if that's not who I was? And it was at that very moment I said, I've got to do something different. And it's so funny. It was that was like on a Monday or Tuesday, I was whining. On that Friday, I get this phone call. It happened. God had to get me to that point first before the next event happened. And this was back in 2004, 2005. It was a phone call on a Friday afternoon. I'll never forget it. On my desk, I had a phone, and it had a direct line, and it had a line that went through my assistant. And, the direct line, only a few people knew that number. Okay, and I knew when they called who it was, and it was important. Well, that day, that phone rang on that line. And I'll never forget this day. And I picked it up, and it was a lady on the other end, and she was crying. And I remember distinctly the words she used, Mr. Rivers, I'm so sorry to hear about your daughter. I said to my daughter, Cameron, who was in kindergarten at the time, I said, what's wrong? What happened to Cameron? She says, well, her tumor, her terminal brain tumor. Okay. Now, by the time I hung up the phone with her, it took me about 20 minutes to get a hold of Monica, my wife. Okay. Now, here's the irony. The business that we were in, the pharmacy that we ran, we treated cancer patients all over the country. Okay. And all my career, I'd been in healthcare. Never before had I had any semblance, any idea of what it was like to have a child or loved one, let alone a child, going through something like this. Okay? I learned a very important lesson that day. It's an old saying that if money can solve the problem, it's not a true problem. And when you're facing a situation, it doesn't matter how much income you have, no matter what your title is or what assets you have available, it's not going to change the outcome of it. That's a true problem. And that leads you to the next one. Sometimes you got to get to a place where all you have left is Jesus to realize all you need is Jesus. And sometimes he pushes you to that very point to show you that very important lesson in doing so. Well, I got a hold of Monica, and it was about 20 minutes later. But like I said, during that 20 minutes, it had shaken me up so much to even thought, what if this is Cameron? What if this truly is? And thank God it wasn't Cameron. I told Monica on the phone, I said, we're going to find out who this family was. Okay, and we did. It took us a few days. We found this beautiful family. Now get this. The little girl's name was Megan, okay? Megan wasn't in Cameron's class. Megan wasn't a friend of Cameron. Megan didn't go to the same school as Cameron. We didn't go to the same church with his family. We didn't live in the same neighborhood. We didn't live in the same community. They live up here in Longwood. We live down in Winter Park. There's no reason that phone call came to my desk that day on my direct line. And I know it wasn't a mistaken phone call because the words I remember the most distinct were, Mr. Rivers, Mr. Rivers, so sorry to hear about your daughter. I'll tell you the rest of the story, but I'll tell you this first. To this day, what's it been, 10 years, 12 years? To this day, we don't know who that phone call came from. And I know it wasn't a mistake. She used my name, and it came on my direct line. Had that phone call not taken place, I'd still be in healthcare likely. I wouldn't be standing here telling you about how God's moved in my life. That's for darn sure. Never underestimate an occurrence, a meeting, a chance that happens in your life. There's always a purpose. And I've learned so much. Ask God, what are you trying to show me in this situation? And when you do, he will answer you. He will show it to you. Well, we met this family, and it's so funny. You know, I learned a lesson later from somebody I look up to very much, Truett Cathy. He told me, he said, there's three things you can give people and put in their lives. He said, your time, your talent, and your resources. You want to get them off your doorstep fastest? You write them a check. You truly love them, you spend time with them, you pour into them, you share your wealth of knowledge and experience and help them grow. Well, I haven't learned this lesson quite yet. So we're going along, and I'd lined up this beautiful little girl and family with indigent care and, you know, with all of our nurses and our pharmacists. And about a week later, all of a sudden I realized, you know, they don't need more drugs. They don't need more care. They need money. So I called the father up and got him on the phone. I said, hey, John. I said, how about if I write you a check, okay? How about, I know you need some money. He absolutely had nothing to do with it. You know, we talked about it for about 5 minutes and absolutely not. Very kind about it, hung up the phone. Now, this is one of the first times I felt a tangible push from the Lord. And that tangible push was, you pick up that phone and you just trust me. Don't you give up, okay? Now, you know, I say tangible push. I wish it was that clear. I wish it was a clear message. I wish it was a knock on the side of my head when God wants to talk to me. You know, where he talks to us, he talks to us in our heart. The word heart is used 892 times in the Bible, okay? Third only to God and to Lord. Right? There's a reason for that. When we line up our heart to God's word, we allow ourselves to hear his message. And then it's having that courage. And I always say to people, you know, be careful. You know, when you're asked to hear it, you know, you hear him, your life is going to change. You know, you don't have an encounter with the Holy Spirit and God, and your life cannot remain the same that it is today. You're praying to hear from him, you better darn well pray for courage to do what he asks you to do. That's the big step. Well, that day, he touched me. He said, pick up that phone. Don't you give up. And I called John up, and I said, hey, John. I said, it's me again. He says, yeah, I know. I just told you no. And literally, I'm making this up on the spot. I said, hey, how about we do a barbecue for you at your church, and all the money that we raise, I'll donate everything, and all the money that we raise goes for little Megan. And he called his wife, Josie, and called me back a little bit later and said, okay, we're in. We'll do it. And he said, but the only date we have to do it was 10 days away. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we'll pull together a little barbecue. Now, when I graduated from college, I moved out to Dallas, Texas. All right? And I always say I went out to Texas and I met the two loves of my life, my beautiful wife, Monica, and brisket when I was out there. I tell you what, in all the years of giving this story, I've only got that mixed up one time in the order. And don't you know, one of her friends was sitting right there, and it got back to her, and she gave me grief on that. That was back in the late 80s, okay? Throughout all these years, I had traveled and traversed all over the country learning more about barbecue, learning how to do brisket and, you know, just honing it. And it was so funny. Even though I was on this trajectory of healthcare, you know, here's God over here, never letting that flame go out about loving to cook and that passion for it. And I absolutely loved it. And over those years, I cooked in my backyard for football parties and this and that. And it might have been for 10 people or 20 people. And quite frankly, it didn't always come out good in that process of it. This event is 10 days later. Okay? 450 people RSVP for it, okay? I've got a little egg in my backyard. That's it. It was literally, it's amazing. God showed up. How he showed up. People, resources just started pouring in. And I didn't have time to do this even. I was running this business over here, okay? Literally, one day I came home. This is a true story. In my garage, because I was asking, how in the world am I going to cook all this? Somebody had put a big trailer with one of those huge smokers and parked it in my garage, in my driveway, literally with a sticky on it. Heard you might need this. Call me when you're done. Okay? And I never met the gentleman. Actually, Monica called him afterwards to get this thing out of our driveway. I never met him. Okay? People started showing up. Resources started showing up. And that was an important lesson. When God touches your heart and he asks you to do something, it's human nature, especially as guys. Okay, how? He's not going to tell you. And you don't have to know that. And I've learned that piece of it. And quite frankly, as I tell you this next phase of this story, had he told me all the challenges and all the obstacles and all the issues we would face in opening our first little smokehouse, I would have said no. It would have scared me off. And hence lies the blessing that you don't know the details sometimes. When God asked Abraham, you remember what God told Abraham? It was Abram at the time, before he changed his name to Abraham. I will bless you. I will bless your descendants. Those who you curse will be cursed. Those who you bless will be blessed. Your descendants will be as great as the sand on the beach. Okay? Everybody likes that verse. But we forget the verse right ahead of it. Okay? Right before it, God said, Abram, leave your household. Leave your father. Leave your family. Gather your goods. And get this. Go to a place I will tell you. Okay? He didn't give him the details. He said, trust me. Pick up all your stuff that you like. Get on your camels. Head that direction. Well, what happens next? I'll tell you when you get there. Okay? You didn't get the blessings until you obeyed the word. And I so much believe obedience and blessings, they are neck and neck. Once you obey that word, no matter what that word is, I think you open yourself up, you allow yourself for God to pour those blessings in. And when you don't obey it, even if you don't know all the details, I think you stop yourself from getting everything God intended in your life. We did that event. We pulled it off 10 days later, and it was by the grace of God. We fed all those people. We raised a lot of money for this beautiful little girl. And I always say, nobody got sick in that process of it. Because we sure didn't have the storage capabilities at all. And that was the event and moment that changed my life. I'll never forget that night. I was wiped, absolutely wiped out. I was laying on the floor at home, and Monica comes over and says, you okay? How do you feel? I said, I feel awesome. I feel alive. She's like, you don't look alive. You're not looking so awesome. I said, I want to do this. And she says, what? And I couldn't articulate it at the time, but what I had found was that passion that I had buried for 15 years, okay? I want to do this. I found my passion, and it was the first time I did my passion, and I did it to help other people. I did it for why God gave me that passion. And that ultimately became our barbecue ministry. And literally over the next 4 years, anytime kids or schools or churches would call up and they'd need money, okay, sure, I'll cut you a check, but hey, can I bring my smoker out for you? If you'd like me to, I'll do your event for you. Well, that grew year over year, and we started doing more and more events, and Monica would say, she says, you're just doing this so you can keep buying bigger smokers year over year over year. But it was alive. And you know what happened? I was on this trajectory course over here in promotion and healthcare, and I was on this trajectory course over here in my passion, what God wanted me to do, and look where the two courses went. They were farther and farther and farther apart. And I found this person, Monday through Friday, was a completely different person of Saturday, Sunday. And the disparity between those two became so evident and so great, I couldn't live with that. I was alive over here. It's funny, even though I had achieved the level that I wanted to over here, I couldn't find fulfillment out of it. And God had did this. It was all preordained. It was all part of his plan. Because if he told me here, I want you to leave this job, go start a restaurant. I don't know, and I have a job. I have a mortgage. I have, the same reason why I talk to so many men, well, what would you like to be doing? And they're unhappy. And it's great. I love what they say because they speak from their heart. Okay, I really like to be a camp counselor or run an orphanage or teach kids or be a track coach. Well, why don't you do it? They look at me, and I can say this because that was me 10 years ago. I can't do that. I got mortgage. I got car payments. I got kids in school. What if the business doesn't work? What if it fails? What if I'm not good enough at it? Okay? The number one reason people don't follow that passion that God put in their heart is fear. Satan uses fear as a tangible weapon to keep us from being what God ordained us to be. 2 Timothy 1:7, for God did not give us a spirit of fear, but one of strength, power, and patience. Okay? And when we listen to fear, it keeps us away from what God intended us to be. You know what the onset of fear is? It's worry. The onset of worry is? It's doubt. And that's where he plants that seed. If you notice, of all those things that I said, the mortgage, this and that, it came down to, what if I'm not good enough at it? What if I fail at it? 7 out of 10, or 8 out of 10 restaurants today fail. Okay? And if you start to listen to all the reasons of why humans' side has failed and can't do it, you'll easily give in to that. And when you do, you stop yourself from realizing that blessing that God had intended for you. Okay? Well, I did it. I couldn't live with that disparity, that lie that I had. And people think, well, you just retired, you have this grand plan, you went into straight to open a restaurant. No, I didn't. I knew that I wasn't in the right place. And if you're in the wrong place and you stay there, you're not going to get to the right place. The longer you stay somewhere that you're not intended to be and that you're not happy about, you stop yourself from creating those opportunities and finding those opportunities that put you in the right place. And I realized I had to get out of this, even though I didn't know where I was going. And quite frankly, I thought, well, maybe I'll just be another healthcare company, or maybe I'll do whatever it is. Well, those 2 years passed before we opened the first restaurant. Okay? A couple things happened during those 2 years. One, the ministry grew. Okay, the ministry grew. I was doing healthcare consulting, and I was traveling all over the country, but it gave me more time, so we started doing more and more events. That last year, from our garage, we served over 40,000 people in the ministry. Okay, we never did it commercially. We never took money for it. It was just, it became so evident I love doing this. Okay, and quite frankly, I was testing the business too. I'm a huge fan from a business perspective. Invest a little, learn a lot. So many people rush out with their passion and put all their health and their money into it before they've tested it. And you think about each one of those events, I was testing and testing while I was following my heart and doing it. Okay? And then we got so big, as a matter of fact, so many of these events, I say we had to get into a licensed facility. Monica says you need to get the heck out of the house. Did anybody ever go to the first little restaurant we opened in Winter Park? Well, God bless y'all. You parked in one of 11 parking spots we had there. Hopefully you did park in the parking spot. We opened that little place, and the reason I chose that place, that wasn't supposed to be a restaurant, by the way. That was supposed to be a commissary that we could run the ministry out of. And we never had intention of having people come in and line up. Matter of fact, when we built and designed that little sucker, we had, the line that's there with the glass and everything, we had a bell on the top of it, thinking, okay, well, we'll be in the back cooking for the ministry. We won't know if somebody actually walks in and who may want to buy our food. We figured they would ring the bell and get our attention to it. We had no clue what was going on. And quite frankly, we had no clue about building this thing. Now, I had launched drugs and all over the country, and I'd built pharmacies all over the country. I thought I was pretty good about opening and building things, okay? I had no clue what was going to be involved in opening up. It was only 1,146 square feet. This was a little thing, and I chose that location because it was the entrance into Winter Park, into my community, my home. I said, okay, if I'm going to make this investment, I'm going to make my community, I'm going to invest it back in my community and make it prettier. The budget to open this little restaurant was $188,000, okay? The time frame that our contractor and our designers gave us, it should take you about 3 months, 3.5 months. Such a fool. 6.5 months later, over $500,000 of our capital, this family, into this little teeny thing, okay, which was a complete mess. It was such a mess, my contractor, God bless him, stopped showing up. Okay? He got into a negative cash situation. I'm at an absolute standstill on this little place in Winter Park, okay? I have no idea how to fix it. And oh, by the way, this is in 2009, okay? When the entire economy collapsed. All the money that we had gotten from the healthcare business, I put into mutuals that were down 60%, okay? A lot of the other cash that we had, I hate debt, so we built this big house, put a lot of cash into that. The day we moved in it, we were upside down. Long story short, for the first time in Monica and I's marriage, we were down to 60 days of cash, okay? 60 days of cash and no solution, okay? I couldn't back out of this thing now, okay? I couldn't walk away from it, I couldn't leave it, but I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to get it open, I didn't know how to get it to CO, and gosh forbid, even if we did, now I'm walking into what's feeling like a restaurant where the risk is incredibly high. Right when I was at literally my lowest point is when Satan came in and hit me with a temptation. Okay? He disguised it as a blessing. And this is an important piece, because when you start walking down the path God intended for you, believe me, you will get Satan's attention. He doesn't want you doing what God intended you to do, because you know what? One day you're going to talk to people and you're going to inspire them to do what God asked them to do. He doesn't want that. Mine came from actually my mentor, one of the men that I love and trust the very, very most. He was my CEO at Priority when I was there. His name is Steve. Love him. He called me up and he said, John, he said, we're buying 3 specialty pharmacies. When he retired, he was smarter with his cash and capital, and he started a conglomerate group. So we're going to buy 3 specialty pharmacies, and we're going to combine their assets. We want to put the headquarters right here in Orlando. And he said, would you like to be considered to be the CEO of it? Okay, and this is on a Friday. And I'll tell you what, my spirits jumped up here, because I was literally down. I was going to run out of cash. This family, I was going to pull the kids out of school. We're going to sell the house for a loss. I mean, it was a mess. Okay, and he did this out of the kindness of his heart. My spirits went up here on Friday, and thankfully I had the fortitude to say, let me pray about it with my wife, and I'll get back to you on Monday. He said, absolutely. Something happened that weekend. My spirits were here, and by Sunday morning, they were down here. And you know why? There's 3 things. I asked myself, will I be learning? Not really. I've done it before. Will I be doing something I'm passionate about? Absolutely not. Will I be doing it just for the money? Yeah. It wasn't a blessing. It was a temptation. And that's a good litmus test to use. Why are you doing what you're doing? If that answer is just for the money, money can be duplicated. And when you say, oh, no, I can't do this, yes, you can. Yes, you can. We prayed about it, and I called him up Monday, and I said, Steve, and he knew the situation we're in. I said, thank you so much, but I got to pass. And he was surprised. He said, you sure about this? And I said, yes, I am. He said, tell me why. I said, well, I prayed about it with Monica. And thank goodness, this is an important piece too, for her faith and the strength of her faith standing by my side. If you're going to start stepping out there, remember Abraham didn't go out on his own. He brought Sarah and he brought some other ones with him. Okay? Her strength and her faith in the Lord, and she knew my heart, what we were doing. She said, John, if this is truly what you believe God wants you to be doing, she says, I will stand by your side. Let's do it, even if we lose everything. Okay? Had she not released me from that, I wouldn't have done it. Okay? Second thing I told Steve, I said, I have 2 teenage children at the time. I said, I feel in my heart it's more important for me to show them example of the importance of following my dream and failing at it versus not even having that faith to take that step. Steve's a great man of heart in the Lord. He understood completely. Who was it, Mark Twain? He said, 20 years from now, you'll regret more the things that you didn't do more so than the things that you tried and failed at. Regret is a terrible thing to live with throughout your life. I hung up the phone with him, and I didn't have an answer. Okay, that was an important thing, but I obeyed God. Okay, and I put that credence on my wife. She gave me that strength to say yes. That's when it happened. Okay, I obeyed. I allowed God to pour the blessings in. The next week, I got 2 phone calls out of the complete blue. One of them is from a dear friend who lives right up here. He's having a Bible group study. He's had it for years up in Longwood. One of the guys in the study lives in Maitland. For some reason, he comes down to Winter Park on Tuesday mornings to get his coffee and drives up Fairbanks every time to come up to the Bible study. He comes to the Bible study that day, not too far from here. And in the Bible study, he says, man, he says, something really odd happened to me this morning. He says, I drove by this construction site on Fairbanks, and it looked like it was a complete mess. And I felt God tell me, I'm supposed to help this guy. He needs help. I'm supposed to do something. Well, Kurt, my friend who's running the Bible study, looks at him and says, yeah. He says he's in big trouble. He needs lots of help. Okay? The guy's name was Brad. Okay? Brad Watkins, owner of Friedrich Watkins Construction Company. Friedrich Watkins had 2 clients in town, Disney and SeaWorld. Okay? Brad, out of the blue, literally, because he felt a push from God when he drove by that morning. Brad steps into my life. Okay, you ready for this? Gets us to CO and to opening 59 of the 60 days later. We opened with 1 day of cash to our name. And to this day, he never took a penny for the work he did. His company built all of our locations. Brad left Friedrich Watkins. He came and joined our company 3 years ago. Brad leads all of our construction and development right now as our director. Second phone call. We were at the beach that weekend. We went to the beach a lot because it was free. And it was Sunday. It was Sunday, yeah. We got in the car, okay, and we're driving home. And I look in my phone, and there's a message from a 404 phone number. I said to Monica, and the kids are in the back seat, and we're in the truck, who in the world is calling me from Atlanta? And I push the button, and this is out of the blue. Mr. Rivers, he said, this is Dan Cathy. He says, I work for Chick-fil-A. You don't work for Chick-fil-A. You own Chick-fil-A. He says, I just had your brisket and your sauce. He says, that's the best thing I've ever had. And I felt God tell me I'm supposed to help you out, step in your life, do anything I can to help you, whatever you're working on. He didn't know what I was working on, okay? Now get this. He gives me his phone number, his cell, his home number, his assistant's number. Anything you need, he says, I want to hear from you. Okay? How do you get the brisket? How do you get the sauce? We did an event that week in town, like Domerick or something like that. We donated food to. Friends of his were in town, and they ended up helping us serve that day. They brought some of the brisket and some of the sauce that we had left over. They went to a dinner party back in Atlanta. They were running late for the dinner party, so they simply took my brisket, threw it in the microwave, put it on the table, and that's where Dan and Rhonda had our brisket and our sauce. You can't make this up. You can't plan it to work out that way. It's God behind it doing it. Dan stepped into my life. He never gave us money. I never asked him for money. He gave me something much more valuable. He gave me confidence. He lined up beside me. He answered every call I made to him. He helped me open that facility. He helped me, what do I do here? What do I do there? And he still does it today. I promise you, I look on my phone, I'll have at least 1 or 2 texts from him in the last 2 days. He's never left my side in doing so, and that's a very, very valuable lesson. I'll never forget asking him, we're coming up to opening now, and I felt like I had to have a P&L. I was just wired in my old corporate days. I said, what should we do as a budget? What do we think we should do? He said, well, John, he says, top line, he says, you're only 1,100 square feet, little teeny barbecue place. What do you say about, you do about $1,500 a day, you'd be doing market average. He says, you do $2,000 a day, you'd be doing really, really well. Well, it was October 26 in 2009. There were 12 of us. I was a carver. Monica was down on the POS. We were down to 1 day of cash. We didn't have money to advertise. We didn't have money to buy equipment. Couldn't get floaties out there. We couldn't do anything. All we could do literally was just pray and open the door. And at 11 o'clock, that's exactly what we did. No idea what was going to happen. Right? And then it happened. God showed up. And at first it was friends and family, being supportive. Then it was all these people that we had served over the years in the ministry. It taught us a very important message in marketing about how you run a business. But then after that, it was people we didn't know. People started coming in, and it was the odd, and they kept coming in and lining up. That first day of opening, we closed the day at over $3,500 in sales, okay? That first year, we closed the year at over $10,000 a day average in this little teeny place, more than 5 times higher than the market average. To this day, we just opened up store number 15 up in Atlanta, consequently. Okay? To this day, we still outperform the marketplace by 2.5 to 3 times per location. Okay? Is it the brisket? No. No, I like the brisket, but no. Is it the sauce? No. It's because we've kept God in the center of our business. We stepped into when God said, just to do this, and I will take care of you. Okay? And we did that, and God has remained in the center of our business. To this day, we do very little advertising. We do very little couponing. And we take all that money instead, and we put it back into the community because of that important lesson that we learned day one. If you want to grow your business, you support your customers. You support them outside of your 4 walls. That's how you grow that trust. People buy from people. You can't buy from people if you don't have that personal relationship. You establish that relationship and you invest in it. Things you invest in grow, by the way. If you're investing in doing something away from work or taking it away from asset, that's going to grow. You want your business to grow, you invest in the right areas. It was Dan's father that told me a long time ago, right before we opened. He says, you're going to make a choice. You're going to be successful on this because God's behind you. He says, as you grow, you're going to make a choice between being successful and being significant. And he told me, he said, success is defined by a lot of different ways. Your title, your income, your house, your car, your letters after your name on your card. He said, all those are blessings from God as long as they don't define who you are and you don't allow them to define what you're doing. Significance, he said, is making a difference in even one person's life. That's what's lasting. He said, at the end of the day, he says, you don't have to build an orphanage halfway around the world. You don't have to change thousands and thousands of lives. If that's what you're called to do, great. But even if you make an impact and an impression on one person's life, you've made a significance. And that's far greater than any of the successes that you will ever get. And I learned a lesson about that a long, long time ago, about calling and talk to all these people about, do you need to go in this mission field and this mission field? And that lesson is, God calls us not necessarily to go somewhere to do his work. God calls us to bring God into wherever we are to do his work. And quite frankly, when you talk to people who are sitting next to people in a corporate office or in a cubicle, hey, why don't you talk to them about Jesus? That's a lot scarier than going halfway around the world to talk to a stranger you'll never see again. And that's been one of the greatest challenges. And the lesson that I teach our team, everybody who walks in that front door, you treat them like friends and family. Everybody that you're working beside, friends and family. And you have the opportunity, every one of them, to make an impact in their life, to teach them what it is to be a Christian. You don't have to preach. You just treat them with love. Treat them with respect. And it's amazing what difference that will make in their day. I'm going to leave you with this. This is one of my favorite sayings in Nelson Mandela. This came from him in his acceptance speech. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure, capable of doing all that we are called to do. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us the most. I pray that each and every one of you find that call and you hear what God's saying to you. I pray you have the courage to follow it and never worry about those details. Just know that he's by your side. I thank you very much, and God bless you all.
John, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Golly, thank you.
Very well.
Guys, this is on video, and you're going to want to listen to this again, aren't you? Right? I don't know if I should call you Reverend Rivers, the minister of barbecue, but I love that whole idea that we are all called and that we are ministers of the gospel. I took copious notes, but I know I'm going to have to see this video again too. And I've heard some of this before, but I've heard it at a deeper level today. And I hope you guys, 21st century discipleship. Isn't it a privilege to be a follower of Christ at the beginning of the 21st century? Isn't it awesome? Ah, so good. All right, I'm going to pray, get you out of here. John's got about 5 more minutes, then I got to walk him out the door to get to a meeting. But what a privilege. Again, we thank you for helping Forge get started, but for all that you are doing in the city and for the people that you love. I'm going to Atlanta today. I don't know if I'm going to get up to number 15 for a meal. But I was at Fairbanks yesterday. That's my claim to fame. All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for the reality that we belong to you because you came after us. Thank you that your vision for our life is so much bigger than our vision for our life, so much better. Thank you for the gospel. Thank you that Jesus loves us and has done everything to bring us into a relationship with you. Thank you that we are your boys. Thank you that we are the deeply beloved sons of the Most High God, and our status can never get higher than that. And so we thank you for John and what you've done in his life. Thank you for bringing him to the end of himself and bringing him back to be used in a powerful way. May we follow that example. May we follow you as we go out into the workforce today. Bless, continue to bless. Four Rivers, continue to bless us for your name, for your honor, and your glory. We pray these things in the strong name of our risen Savior, Jesus Christ. And God's men said, amen. Thank you again, John. There he is.